So I told Brooke I was practicing with the choir Wednesday night, and she says, "But honey, you can't sing." So that was my agreement with Susan. I asked her to sing that hymn, and she said, "Only if you sing with us." And I'm like, "You really don't know what you're asking, do you?" I took a course in pastoral ethics my first year of seminary. It was the second semester of my first year of seminary, and it was actually a third-year course. So it was kind of one of those requirements for graduating seminary students to take pastoral ethics just before they entered into full-time pastoral ministry. I took it that first year because I was on a different track than a number of my colleagues. But the first day of class, I remember that Duncan Rankin walks in and he says, "Get out a sheet of paper." And he had everyone in the class write down. He said, "I want you to write down in order the two places in Scripture where the Ten Commandments, write down where the Ten Commandments are found in the Old Testament, and then write them down in order as they appear." And so he comes back the next time we meet for class, and much to his chagrin, there were only a couple of us that apparently got it right. And so it made me think, if individuals who are about to go out into full-time vocational ministry cannot list the Ten Commandments in order and where they're found, how many people within our congregations can do it? And so we've got 10 fingers. Let me just walk you through this real quick. Number one, if you go to a football game, sometimes you see the foam football finger. God is number one. Number two, if you've ever watched VeggieTales, there is a VeggieTales movie with Nebuchadnezzar the bunny. No idols. No idols. Number three, some of these aren't as good as others, just have to bear with me. But number three, this is doubly important. If you look closely, you see a V. I know this is doubly important. Don't take God's name in vain. Okay? The average household is a mom, a dad, and 2 children. It's the average household, they say. And so, think of mom and dad and 2 kids going to church on Sunday. Remember the Sabbath. 5, honor mom and dad. Honor mom and dad. 6, don't murder. Don't murder. Okay? If you've got 7 people and 2 run off and do something they're not supposed to, don't commit adultery. Don't commit adultery. In some cultures, once upon a time, if you were caught stealing, they would chop off your thumbs. It's hard to grab things without your thumbs. Number 8, don't steal. Okay? 9, if you say you have 10 apples, but you only have 9, what are you doing? Don't lie. And number 10, I want it all. Cookie Monster, don't covet. Okay? So the 10 Commandments. Now, I read somewhere, and I cannot remember where it was, that perhaps God determined to give us the 10 Commandments because we have 10 fingers, and we can easily track them accordingly. In Deuteronomy 6:6-8, Moses says, "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads." Plainly speaking, parents are to teach the 10 Commandments to their children. And I think that when our children veer to the left, they will be reminded of God's law and be turned back in the correct way. And if they veer to the right, they'll be reminded of God's law, and they can veer back in the correct way. Over the next several Sunday mornings, we will actually study more in depth these laws and their greater meaning. But as important as it is for us to memorize and to fully explain the law of God, which, by the way, we find in Exodus chapter 20, and bonus points for anybody who can tell me where else they're found in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 5. Thanks for playing, Chamlin. Deuteronomy chapter 5. Okay? So we need to know where God's word is, and we need to know what they teach, but we kind of need to know why they're given to begin with. And the giving of the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai first reports on our inadequacy. It reports on our inadequacy. We could never clean ourselves up in order to win a holy God's favor. Lesson 1. I do not gain God's love based on anything that I can do. And honestly, that goes against our natural instincts, doesn't it? Take, for instance, when Brooke and I were dating, before I picked her up for dinner, I had better taken a bath. I mean, it kind of works that way, doesn't it? We clean ourselves up in order to gain the affection of others. We try to cover up all our warts and smell all pretty, only our warts will eventually come out anyway. Just ask Brooke how true that has proven in our 13 plus years together. But the giving of the Ten Commandments demonstrates that we do not clean ourselves up to earn God's acceptance. Isaiah 64:6 informs us that our best works are as filthy rags. The Apostle Paul explains in Romans 3:10, there is none righteous, no, not even one. So if you are a believer today, you should not expect unbelievers to keep God's law. It is senseless to ask someone who does not have a relationship with God to live in accordance with the same morality as a Christian. We do not begin by sharing our morality with unbelievers. We share the gospel. Consider Exodus chapter 14, verses 21 and 22. There, after the Lord delivers Israel from physical bondage, he leads them along the path of the Red Sea, has them pass through the waters, and Paul connects that to baptism in 1 Corinthians 10, verses 1 and 2. God had not yet handed down his order of law to the Hebrew people. He never said to the enslaved Jewish people, keep my statutes, and then I will deliver you from bondage from Egypt. No, God redeemed them by his grace, had them pass through the baptismal waters, and then brought them to Mount Sinai. Read again the prelude to the Ten Commandments in Exodus 20, verse 2. Yahweh declares, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. And then the Decalogue follows. Still, I want to be clear here. While we cannot expect non-Christians to live in accordance with Christian morality, sharing the gospel does require that we speak of human sin set against the holiness of God. Paul explains in Romans 7, verse 7, I would not have known what sin was had it not been for the law. For I would not have known what coveting really was if the law had not said, you shall not covet. The giving of the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai thus reminds us of our inability. Lesson 2, I have a profound need, and I need a mediator. Between the start of Exodus chapter 19 and the end of Exodus chapter 24, Moses goes up and down the mountain. At times, the prophet stands before the people. At other times, he stands before the Lord in a dense cloud. In other words, Moses serves as the mediator between God and Israel. In Exodus 19, verse 3, Moses goes up the mountain before the Lord. In 19:7, he goes down the mountain to the people. In 19:8, Moses goes back up, then back down again in 19:14. In 19:20, he goes back up before returning down yet again in 19, verse 25. And this is what I think a lot of times people in the church miss because they watch Charleston Heston, and the Ten Commandments, and they know that they've got it all figured out, right? But it's not actually the case, because God speaks not just to Moses, but he also speaks to the Hebrew people, the Ten Commandments. We do not learn of these commands being written on tablets of stone until Exodus chapter 34. Upon hearing the voice of the Lord and his laws in Exodus 20, 18, and 19, the people trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die." In Exodus 20, verse 21, Moses then goes back up before the Lord. And yet Moses had limitations as a mediator. He could not look directly at the face of God. He could not remain in the presence of God. He could not reform the people of God or deal with their sin. And that is why, upon remembering the Mount Sinai experience, Moses says later in Deuteronomy 18, 15, and 16, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. For this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, 'Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die.'" Moses was a great prophet, but he was not enough. A greater than Moses was required. Hebrews 12, verse 24 tells us that Jesus is the mediator of the new covenant. Jesus is the promised mediator that we need. He is fully God and he is fully man. In Jesus, Matthew 1:23 reveals that the fullness of God descended to earth as Emmanuel. In Jesus, Acts 1:9 reveals that the fullness of man ascended into the clouds back to the throne of God. And between those texts, Jesus did what you and I could never do. He perfectly kept the law of God. He died on the cross for our sin, and he rose again in power from the grave. We no longer have to go on pilgrimages up and down a mountain, or look to some pastor, or look to someone else to serve as our go-between. If you want to meet with God, listen to him in the Holy Scriptures. Speak to him through prayer because of what Jesus Christ, your mediator, has done for you. Finally then, the giving of the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai should redirect our affections. Lesson 3, I have been redeemed to live redeemed. The Israelites were not just saved from Egyptian bondage. They were saved unto something. At the beginning of the Decalogue, God essentially says, I have redeemed you. Keep this law. And then Moses, at the end of it, says to the people, do not be afraid. God has come to test you so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. Friends, we have been saved from our spiritual bondage unto something. Paul says in Romans 6, verse 6, "For we know that our old self was crucified with Christ, so that the body ruled by sin might be done away with, that we should no longer be slaves to sin." Remember the woman from John chapter 8 who was caught in adultery. People are ready to pelt her with stones to death. Only Jesus asked, "Anyone without sin cast the first stone." Everyone drops their handheld rocks. The one person who could have thrown a stone then speaks to the woman, "I do not condemn you. You are redeemed." But then he says, "Go, sin no more." Earlier, we worshiped in singing the song from Big Daddy Weave. Because I don't have to be the old man inside of me, because his day is long dead and gone. Because I've got a new name, a new life. I'm not the same, and a hope that will carry me home. I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains, wipe away every stain, because I'm not who I used to be. I have been redeemed to live redeemed. As the Puritan John Owen explains it, our union with Christ is solely by grace. You and I do not contribute anything. But having been united to Christ and delivered from the bondage of sin, we then enter into communion with him, and dwelt by the power of the Holy Spirit. What then does this communion look like? How then shall we thus live? Jesus says in John 15:12, "This is my commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you." Paul writes in Galatians 5:13 and 14, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love, for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself." And then the apostle continues in Galatians 6 and verse 2, telling us, "Carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you fulfill the law of Christ." My favorite character from J.R. Tolkien's fantasy series, The Lord of the Rings, easily, by far, hands down, is Samwise Gamgee. I don't know if my wife doesn't do fantasy. She hasn't read the books. She hasn't seen the movies. Maybe you haven't either. I don't want to give anything away, but lest I do, here I go. Okay? At the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, Sam runs after Frodo. Frodo is leaving on his own. He's in a boat. He's on the lake. And Samwise sees and notices that Frodo's leaving, and he runs for Frodo. And as he runs, Frodo's out on the lake, and he's like, "Stay back, Sam. You can't swim." And Sam runs out into the water anyway, and he's about to drown, and Frodo reaches down and grabs him and pulls him back up in the boat, and Samwise Gamgee looks at his friend and says, "I'm not going to leave you to face this hard, difficult thing on your own." And then, at the end of the Two Towers, when Frodo feels especially discouraged, it's Samwise Gamgee who speaks words of hope to him. And then my favorite scene of all the trilogy, in The Return of the King, when Frodo doesn't have the strength anymore to continue on his own up Mount Doom, Sam says, I cannot carry your burden for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you. You see, to me, Samwise Gamgee reflects that for which you and I have been saved, to love. We have been redeemed to love. Why do we get it so mixed up? Why do we lose sight of that? The Ten Commandments ultimately reveal to us the nature of God. And 1 John 4:8 says, God is love. He loved us so much, in fact, that he gave his only begotten Son. And so we come to the law of God, and it points you to the love of God, that you would live in his love. I invite you to know that love today. If you don't know it, if you've never experienced it, if you've never come to Christ and said, I need you, Lord, to stand in my place, today, won't you do that? Won't you come and say, Jesus, I want to know your love so that I can live redeemed in the power of that love. As our musicians come forward, I would ask you to join me in a moment of prayer. Let's pray together. Lord Jesus, direct our hearts, I pray today, to your love. And as we know your love, as we are united to you, bring us into communion with you that we might love others as you have loved us. Let's not get bogged down in the trivial things and the mundane things and the things that really don't matter, the bickering about things. Let us focus upon your love. Now, tomorrow, the next day, and every day, that we are so blessed to be here on this earth to serve you. We have been redeemed for something. I believe it's for your love. Let your love be known through Winstanley Baptist Church, I pray. Christ be glorified. Amen.